Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us, 865-658-5824. Join alongside Emilio in Tennessee. Jacob had to bounce out. He had some business to take care of over at Brookview Meadows. Tim is still in isolation, parts unknown. But, Emilio, how are you doing today, bro?
Yeah, no, I think Jacob shoots for something over
65%.
65%. That's what we.
But yeah, toasty one. We were just talking about it, but hopefully we're past it. Can't wait, man. The season is just inching closer. Tomorrow's going to be a week away. It's here, man.
Yeah, we made it, man. No doubt about it. It's great too because the pressers are cranking up. We're going to hear from Jeff Hafley, which his press conference just lit Packers Twitter on fire. Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Love that dude. Excited to see what he can do. And here's the thing too. I'm somewhat curbing the enthusiasm. I know many people think this defense is just going to turn into a top 3, top 5 defense. I want to give a little grace because every time that you switch to a new defensive coordinator, typically there's some setbacks, right? Like it's going to take a little bit of time to get your feet under you. I hope he puts all that to bed. Don't get me wrong, but yep. I also don't want it to be something where we're 3 games into the season and the numbers are looking worse than what they were last year, and all of a sudden everybody hates or about said Joe Barry hates Jeff Hafley. That was it just rolls off the tongue. But I'll tell you what else rolls off the tongue. That's the name Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. Wisconsin-based since '92, specializing in Packers tickets. They are Wisconsin's largest ticket source with offices next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. You can click on a link in the video description that'll send you to theticketking.com where you can register for free as a customer. Go ahead and start shopping for your Packers tickets. Again, that is Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. All right, so we had some news come down the pike here real quick. We don't like to talk about other teams other than the Packers on this show, but when contracts break, we just want to hit on them briefly. I don't know if you've seen Emilio, but Brandon Aiyuk finally inked the new deal here. As Ian Rappaport tweeted out, the 49ers are giving Brandon Aiyuk $76 million in guaranteed in his 4-year, $120 million front-loaded deal. So very interesting. They still don't have Trent Williams in camp just yet. However, it looks like Brandon Aiyuk's going to be there for the foreseeable future. Just get your initial thoughts on that because it's again, everything comes back to how does it comp to the Packers, and obviously the Packers got one of the cheapest wide receiver rooms in the league. This right here, I think I don't know, man. I don't know how it's going to affect the Niners. Brandon Aiyuk's a great player. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. Him and Debo are deployed different, but he's definitely more of the receiver on the team. That's a fact.
Right. No, and I think that's why they needed him. But the fact of when I was listening to Michael, he was, Lombardi, he was talking about how do we think he's better than DJ Moore? Do we think that he's better than I forgot who else, AJ Brown? So
CeeDee Lamb too.
Right. So where are you at money wise compared to those guys, and how are you going to keep moving forward? Because I think it was them or another podcast, they were talking about how are we going to keep an NFL team together if we're paying left tackles this kind of money, if we're paying quarterbacks that kind of money, and then we're also going to be kicking it to wide receivers. You're going to have cheap running backs. You're going to have cheap things here and there. The defense is going to have to be cheap. So I think at some point it's going to balloon, right, where it gets kind of out of hand and we have to go back down to normal. Congrats to him. Happy you got it done now. Sitting in. But it's, it's a rival. So good for him, but we got to keep moving.
Yeah, they say receiver, and this is Bill Walsh 101. Ironically, Brandon Aiyuk gets a huge deal in San Francisco. They say receiver is the last position to put in place. It's the last piece of the puzzle to put in place. It's hard to argue that the 49ers aren't already put together. They do. They have a solid football team. Obviously, they knocked the Packers out last year. They're a team that's built really well in the trenches. Bosa up front. Obviously, you got Trent Williams if he's going to play for him this year, and I'm sure he will. On the opposite side, so you're built pretty well in the trenches. You got a quarterback that protects the football. He plays within the system. He plays on time. He plays with rhythm. You've got a good running game with obviously Christian McCaffrey, and then of course you got Deebo Samuel as kind of your trick pony. He can play out of the slot. He can flex in the backfield, cause some mismatches, that type of thing. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. So
But that's it. That's the problem is you're gonna have to keep paying everybody. I mean, you just paid wide receiver. Now you got to pay a left tackle just to show up. That's an issue after you just paid Christian.
Yeah, and that's why it's important. Like Michael Lombardi was talking about. I know you heard the same podcast when he's talking about modeling your roster, modeling out. Okay, how are we going to build our roster? What's the blueprint look like? And it's important not to deviate too far from that blueprint. But anyway, that's enough 49ers talk. Just wanted to hit on it because anytime a wide receiver or any other position for that matter kind of puts a pretty large number into the market, it's important. It's another checkpoint, if you will, another marker, I guess you could say. So in other news with the Packers, obviously Clay Matthews and Aaron Campman going into the Packers Hall of Fame today. This was from Matt Schneider. Said Clay Matthews sporting his Super Bowl ring while shouting out his presenter for the Packers Hall of Fame, former longtime Packers DC Dom Capers. So Dom Capers is the one who's presenting Clay Matthews Jr.
That's awesome.
I think Dom Capers got a bad rap there toward the end, man. Me personally, I think he's a great coach, been a great coach in the league for a long time. Just a solid defensive coach.
Yeah, absolutely. And, congratulations to Clay, man. He deserved it, but he wouldn't have been there if the Packers didn't give him the opportunity, if he didn't have the coaches he had. So, I mean, that's awesome. Like I said, I wasn't ever able to get into the Hall of Fame when I was there for that one game. I went to the 1919. I got some curds, and I peeled out of there. So I'm going to have to do that when we go up for the draft.
Yeah, they get it set up real nice. A lot of really cool old memorabilia. Just really, really, really awesome. And just to give everybody a heads up, it's going to be kind of a short show tonight. We're going to try to go as long as we can. Emilio's got plans. I've got stuff I got to take care of as well. So we'll just to let y'all know, probably won't be a double episode tonight. We'll try to get through one here if we got time. I've got people blowing my phone up right now. But, yeah.
Busy man.
Other news for the Packers. Paul Brettel tweeted out, Packers announced that they signed Brown to the practice squad. This is Omar Brown, defensive back from Nebraska. Do you remember that, Emilio? 6'1", 200 pounds. Yeah. Talk to me, man. We mocked him a couple times, didn't we?
All I saw was all I remember was once we hit the 5th or 6th round, Jacob was like, all right, I need Dallas Gant and I need Omar Brown. All right, Tim, where are you putting Omar? And we liked him, though. We really did after breaking down some of his numbers. He played well, played physical, played at Nebraska, hardworking kind of guy. And like Fred McFarley was saying here, Brown as a first year was a top 30 visit for Green Bay pre-draft. I think that we did have him in a different color, right, on the board. So another safety to just keep your eye on. Maybe it's for special teams. Maybe it's because, we're leaning a different way. But I'm totally fine with having an open spot and filling it with some new young guys.
Definitely, man. And Omar, for those of you who don't remember, he was actually on the consensus big board at 328. He peaked at 189. So obviously he was down towards the bottom. He was definitely on the bottom of my board as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I remember Storm Duck too. Yep.
Yep. So obviously you're going to add him to the practice squad. We'll see how that goes. Emilio, if I have to step away and take a call, can you handle the chat for a few minutes and just kind of chat with everybody here? Post it up.
Sure.
Can
we'll give it a shot.
If it's a train wreck, it's a train wreck.
I'll just end the stream right then.
But you may have to take over here in a second. Here's a couple Patreon questions I want to hit on. Jordan Taylor in our Patreon group said, with the signing of Malik Willis, I'm guessing Clifford will be called up from the practice squad to back up Love for a couple of weeks. With that said, does Willis provide significant value in practice running scout team for quarterback prep for Hurts, Richardson, Caleb Dudd, Kyler, etc.? It seems that an aggressive front could result in, quote, over pursuing the quarterback and allowing for big runs if not properly contained, etc. Amelia, I'm going to let you handle that one, and you hit this next question here. Get your take on it, then lean on the chat. I'm going to take this call real quick. I'll be right back, bro.
You got it.
You got this, man.
So, all right. So Jordan Taylor, let's see. With the signing of Malik, I definitely think that Clifford is going to be coming up from the practice squad to be the backup. Like we said, he's been there for a year. So why wouldn't we have, Clifford running the offense and, being behind Love to be his helping hand. Really, we need that. So, and for preparation for Hurts, I think we talked about that the other night. Malik can, run, he can pass. I think it's a perfect fit RPO. But I mean, I kind of only caught a couple of minutes of that Hafley interview. I think we might hit some of it later. But when you're looking at the Eagles' offense, how far are you going to look ahead? How far are you going to look back? What are they going to do? Being the same as last year, things like that. So. I think we got a good setup here, man. We have Love. We'll move forward with Clifford for now, and then when Malik's ready, he'll take over. And then we have Dave Colvin here. He asked, watch the Ravens game over again, mostly, and watching Hopper was fun. Watching that guy trigger on runs, the one, I don't even know how he read that fast and knew it was a run. He is very explosive. I do believe that, Dave. He says, was in the second quarter. There was a few in that quarter, went from his spot as a linebacker and met the running back in the backfield. He covered more distance than the running back by far. Love that play. Question I have is, how high do you see his ceiling? Also, if Walker, Cooper, and Hopper are your starters in the 4-3, where do you see them fitting best together? Now, let's see here. I think that Hopper, yes, has that ability to be explosive. When he, when we were watching his film coming out of college, he played downhill fast. Yeah, I mean, that dude was flying all over the field. I think that I'm excited because we've actually seen him on the field, right? We haven't seen Edgerrin Cooper come on the field. So I just think that being able to see that kind of explosiveness out there will really help him versus what we haven't seen anything from Edgerrin. So I hope that we can get that same sort of jump from him. And I think if we had, Walker, Cooper, and Hopper are your starters, I think that it's got to be Walker as Quay as your Mike. I would almost say I think Cooper as your Will, Hopper as your Sam. But let me see what the chat is thinking here because, oh boy, oh man, yeah, Cody, that's pretty much it. Said Emilio, just picture Jacob in a Gandalf hat giggling at you, not joining tonight. So yeah, I like that. Let's see. Ben Holden going back here said Willis looks like he could run with the number ones. I like that take, Ben. If we have a backup that can run with the ones, and we can get a guy that can get a couple wins for us if Jordan Love, goes down or anything like that. I absolutely love that. Let's see. John Smith said, I think it depends on running back health and some special teams decisions. You only get so many call-ups per. You hate to waste it on someone that won't play. That's very true, but I think that you have to bring Clifford up just because you won't have a backup. And I think that with that new rule for the third quarterback, they do need to be on the active game day for them to pull him up for that third emergency. So I think that I almost think you have to pull up Clifford and use up one of them right away and then kind of go from there. Coach Lynn says Malik Willis is better than Justin Fields to me. Definitely, Coach. And he's a better passer, can read the field better in the pocket, obviously. And Russell got named the starter. What are they putting in for Fields? It's going to be those kind of trick plays, bring him in as a quarterback, running back, wildcat sort of thing. I'm happy we got Malik out of that deal. That's the truth. Let's see. Roger Davis says, tough position for Clifford. Train up Willis so he can take your spot. Part of the biz. That's it, man. I mean, hopefully that Clifford balls out, shows out, and can teach Malik enough that Malik is going to be a perfect backup for us. And then hopefully Clifford goes and, gets his, right? Gets a chance to be a starter, gets a chance to be, a second string somewhere else if Malik works out. If not, we've got Clifford here for his coming on his second year. Might as well keep moving forward with the guy that's learned the offense. Let's see. Ron talking about Hafley stuff. Looks like Eagles are using a lot more motion, new offense with the new running back. I think we might get into that a little bit later. Prince, you're talking my language, man. Walker, Cooper, Hopper together would be scary fast. And like Lombardi always says, the speed of your defense is set from your linebacking core, right? So that's where we got to go. I think that's where we're heading. We'll make do with McDuffie and Wilson right now, and then we'll move forward with the fellas we picked up.
All right. So appreciate you, Emilio. Thank you so much, man. So Dave Coleman was asking about the backers, right? And let's see, is also if Walker, Cooper, and Hopper are your starters in the 4-3, where do you see them fitting best together? I'm sure you gave your take, right, Emilio?
Yeah, I said Walker's got to be middle right, and then I think Hopper would be the Sam, right, and Cooper would be Will. Or are we flipping those two?
I know United Bates agree with you. Thank you for the super chat. So he said A plus Emilio. For me, think about what these guys do best, and then we get the cheat sheet here too for the Robert Saleh / Pete Carroll style.
That's what
defense.
I needed was a cheat sheet.
So here we go. All right, I'm going to use it. You're not allowed to. That's the way that works. It says more specifically, the positional breakdowns follow these guidelines. Okay, so this is Robert Saleh, Pete Carroll defense. The old cover 3 buzz. Of course, it's evolved tremendously. It's not just cover 3 anymore. It's farthest thing from it. But mock linebacker, middle linebacker, captain of the unit, and gap destroyer against the run. Key read defender, both pre-snap and at the heart of zone coverages. Okay, the sandbacker, strong side linebacker that usually matches up with the tight end in the passing game or the deep hook zone. Assigned gap defender against the run that may also blitz on occasion. And then Will is the most athletic player in this group, is generally the weak side linebacker known for his elite open field tackling on cutbacks and his zone coverage ability in the flats. So I hate to be the negative Nancy, but listen, if you see it, you got to say it. I don't think Tyron Hopper fits any of these. I really don't. But he's a 3rd round pick, and many people said that he was drafted way higher than he should have been. Now, who the hell are we to say that? We being everyone other than NFL general managers. If there's one general manager, obviously Goot, who's seen him as a 3rd round pick, then he's worthy of a 3rd round pick. That's the way I see that.
Right.
But he really doesn't fit any of these molds. And when you talk Mike, to me, Mike here, Edgerrin Cooper seems like the better fit. However, Quay Walker with the experience is going to wear the green dot, and he's going to play Mike. But Quay Walker's strength last year was pass coverage. So it makes sense he would be the Mike, especially seeing that we're going to be in the nickel 4-2-5. So if we were to just break it down and the only 3 linebackers that are on the team, which is kind of how the question was structured, if the only 3 linebackers on the team are Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, and Tyron Hopper, then I want Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker as my starting linebackers in the nickel 4-2-5. And I would want Quay Walker playing Mike, and I would want Edgerrin Cooper playing Will. Like I said, Tyron Hopper doesn't really fit any of those. In a 4-3, in a base 4-3, if you were going to have to put him out there, I would rather him be the Will backer than the Sam. So I would probably put Edgerrin Cooper on the Sam spot, or maybe even put since you're talking gap destroyer, even though Quay Walker would be wearing the green dot, maybe you put Tyron Hopper at Mike and let Quay try to cover the tight end on occasion, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got that gap destroyer, because that's the one thing I noticed about Tyron Hopper in preseason was that dude he was attacking the run game very aggressively, right?
Absolutely.
So, Ron Sample says might put Hopper as the Mike. There you go, Cooper as the Sam. Makes a lot of sense, man. Really does.
And I think along with that, I was listening. It was I think it was the Athletic Pod or something. They were talking, and the dude was honestly a little rough on Cooper, saying, I don't even know how he's going to transfer as a linebacker just because he was sort of like that apex defender in A&M's defense. So how is he actually going to, is he like a star role, or can he actually play, off-ball linebacker? I think he can. I was just wondering what your take was on him not being able to make that.
On who again?
It was Cooper. The guy was saying that he doesn't know if he'd be able to transfer as like an off-ball because he played so much apex, sort of like flying around kind of on A&M.
When you watch his tape, there's nothing there that suggests he can't make that transition.
And that's what I was thinking, right? But
so, yeah, if you're going based off of what he did in college, I can kind of see their point of pointing that out. But, yeah, I think he'll be fine, man. That start-stop shoot that he's got, if that translates to the NFL, we're in great shape. Because that dude, what I mean by start-stop shoot, he's so good at as soon as the ball's snapped, he starts, he gets into position. You'll see like a step and a half in the right spot, get in the gap, get leverage, right, without making contact. He stops, reads the play, shoots his shot, no hesitation. Right. It's really phenomenal. So let's see here. Drew D in the chat said Hopper ran a 4.68 at his pro day. He's probably a natural Will at 231 pounds. I'm leaning toward him being the Will in a 4.3, but I could see the argument for the Mike. I definitely wouldn't want him at the Sam, right? Because if you do have to cover, isn't it amazing that we heard all offseason people talking about the Sam backer? That's that hybrid rusher. bro, you were stuck in 1993. Sam's are not hybrid rushers anymore. They have got to be prepared to cover. They were hybrid rushers and lining up on the strong side of the formation back when you had Mark Chamora at tight end, and you know what I'm saying, like these big boy tight ends that were kind of blocked first, and they would attack the seam if the defense would allow it. So it's an interesting question that Murph posed there. I think it was Murph. Was it Murph that asked that? I believe.
I think it was Dave.
Okay, that's right. It was. Yeah, okay. And we had a couple other questions here. Let me go to Patreon real quick. I think I've actually got it ready to go here. Let me drop this down because Murph rattled off a few questions, and I wanted to lean on these because I love how the Patreon community is getting really, really involved with everything. Murph rattled off a bunch. Let's just hit them one by one here. He says, God forbid it, but if Jordan goes down, do you see Clifford practice squad being the first option or Willis the backup? Right now, I'd have to say Clifford. That's where my mark's at because he knows the offense. Do you agree with that, Mario?
Okay. Yeah. I think that you could throw in a basic enough plan to make Malik work if you really had to. I think you could, really vanilla it, but I would rather have Clifford out there playing with the ones, not with twos, threes, backups, practice squads. He'd be playing with the ones. I would rather go with the big red dog.
Yeah. Definitely. I agree with that. Now, as Willis learns the offense, I think Willis has a ton more talent than Sean Clifford, obviously.
Right.
That talent don't mean anything, man. You can have Uncle Rico throwing a football over that mountain right there, but if you don't know the offense, it doesn't matter.
It was like they were talking about Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. It was like Sean Payton wanted to be able to give the dude the offense, make the calls, move forward. Russell Wilson wanted a wristband. You're not going to be able to get that across talking, one dude's talking technology, the other dude's talking call sheets, play sheets. It's never going to work.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's see QB room. So Murph's next question was how confident realistically, I love how he said that because he knows we get off the damn rails quick. How confident realistically are you in the team? What do you think our record will be after 4 games? What is our strongest unit on the team? And that's some deep questions there. I'd have to look at the schedule to say what our record was. It seems like I was somewhere around 3-1, or maybe even a little. I might have even been at 4-0. It felt like we could get off to a strong start. Philly's going to be tough. Here we go. Thank you, Amelia. You can get you a pro, man. So we're going at Philly, but it's in Brazil, obviously. Then we got the Colts at home. We at the Titans, and then we got the Minnesota Vikings at home. Obviously, J.J. McCarthy out there going with Sam Darnold. So
I want to say 3-1. I think it's almost got to be.
What do you think the loss is going to be there? Is it Philly?
No, I'm pretty sure I picked the Vikings to beat us the first game.
Gotcha.
Because I think we could sweep the first 3. We get a little too high. We go into our first divisional opponent. We might take an L there.
I could see it. I think. To me, the 2 games that you have the best chance of losing are people are like, what? I thought this was a Packer show. Why are we talking about the best chances to lose? Just being realistic like Murph made us do here, okay? Philly, I think Philly will, they're going to come back. They got a little bit better at running back, obviously, with Saquon Barkley if he's healthy. We're going to talk a little bit of that if we have time here. You got Saquon Barkley. Obviously, you got Jalen Hurts, who played awesome up till the second half of the season last year. Seems like they really tapered off there towards the end. You bring in
AJ Brown, you got Smith at wide receiver.
Yeah, they've got players everywhere. They really do. And they brung in Vic Fangio as their new defensive coordinator. I think that's really going to help too. So they're probably going to play more fundamentally sound from a top-down kind of approach. And hey, look, let's keep everything in front of us type thing. So you got to play patient. So I could see Philly potentially being a problem, but the Colts, with Anthony Richardson, if he does start, I heard something about Joe Flacco maybe starting. I didn't even know he played for the Colts, but there with the Colts, I don't know, man. Anthony Richardson, I could kind of see us with this aggressive defense. Anthony Richardson maybe getting loose a couple times too.
Getting loose running the ball. You're saying, right?
Correct.
Okay, I was going to say my hang up is he threw like 30 passes all preseason. The dude did not throw the rock at all. So that's why I was a little more confident in the Colts. But maybe it's like, all right, Hafley, we're prepping for an RPO team, then we're prepping for an option team, then we're prepping for potentially pass heavy team. I don't know, with the Titans, and then The Vikings is going to be familiar territory. That'll be tough. But
I feel comfortable saying 3-1. That's probably what I would predict to answer Murph's question. So we're both at 3-1 in that regard. That answers that question. He said, "Who will have the better year behind Jacobs, Lloyd or Wilson?" That's a great question. If they're both healthy, my vote would be Lloyd, because he showed a lot of talent at USC. But seeing how Lloyd's already dealing with a hammy, it might be Wilson. And I think Emmanuel Wilson, if he gets the opportunity to really settle in the passing game and he can kind of expound on that part of his game, I think Wilson could have a big year too. You know, when I say big year, I'm not talking about 1,000 yards rushing, obviously. I'm talking about, somewhere around 4.1 yards to carry. I could see him doing that, Amelia.
Like you said, if they're not hurt, I think actually it could be Wilson. My thing is I think Jacobs picked up another 50 touches easy with A.J. Dillon not being, 50 to 100 touches easy with A.J. Dillon not being on the team anymore. I think that with Lloyd being hurt for so long, he still doesn't quite know the offense. I know we can give him an outside zone run sort of thing, but if we want to do any sort of motion on three, swings, all these choice routes in the backfield type stuff, I would rather have Wilson in there. I think he actually might have a better season.
Got it. Cheesehead Murph also asked, "Do you see some of our coaching staff getting poached after this season?" Yes, I do. Jason Vrabel's the one I worry about, Emilio. He's got this wide receiver room just absolutely cranking, right? One of the cheapest in the league. And it's just like you've got I said it going into the offseason, it feels like you got a bunch of number twos, and that's a good place to be, right? You got a bunch of number two receivers. I don't think anyone has proven to be like a true number one yet in the NFL. When I say number one, I mean someone that you would put him on any other offense in the league and go, that's your best receiver there, right? I don't think we quite have that yet. We'll see who develops into it. I personally think it's going to be either going to be Jaden Reed or Dontavion Wicks. That's just me personally. I think those two guys are set to really take a huge leap. But for me, it's Jason Vrabel. I think that he's got an opportunity to potentially be an offensive coordinator. I really do. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think I would go on offense too, but I think it might be Steno. My thing is with that wide receiver crew, Matt is cooking up the offense. Jordan Love's dishing it out. Goody picked them all, right? So when you pull that just one wide receiver coach, all right, he's going to be our OC. It's like, dude had one game where he was able to call it in the preseason this past year. That's his play calling, in-game experience. Then what are we going to do, with it moving forward? I think it's kind of tough yanking one dude and expecting him to turn around the whole offense just because he had a good wide receiver crew. I think that we've been lucky with how we've been drafting in the channel that we were able to pick up to make that happen. But popping back, we missed one of Murph's at the end of the other one there. He said, what about the strongest unit on the team?
Ooh, yeah, that's right. We skipped over it. Strongest unit on the team. When you say unit, it immediately makes you think of multiple players, right? But I think you got to look at the position rooms too. And I'm telling you, man, Jordan Love, like if he picks up where he left off last year, and listen, there's a chance he doesn't, and he takes a slight step back, and is still a top 10 quarterback. If he picks up where he left off, might have the best quarterback in the league. Like, it was that good coming down the stretch. So the quarterback, the starting quarterback, phenomenal. Now, the backups, we don't know what Malik Willis is going to be, so it's hard to pick them as a unit.
Right.
I'd say if I had to pick one, it's mainly because of Jeff Hafley bursting onto the scene here. I'd probably say DBs. Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, I think, is going to be a phenomenal player. You've got Jair Alexander, who's hungry once again. You got Eric Stokes, who's looked really good in camp. I think he's been rejuvenated with Coach Hafley helping him. Also, you got Derek Ansley helping coach him up, former DC. Now he's the passing game coordinator, defensive backs coach. If I had to pick anything other than quarterback, strictly because of Jordan Love, I'd probably say cornerbacks, man. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, too old for this says here the strongest unit would have to be wide receiver. We had to cut guys who would be 3 to 4 elsewhere. I think that's a good point. Definitely. I think my decision, was going to be right here with Cody. Defensive end. I think our D line kind of general. Oh, there we go. Dead fish. Our D line in general, I think would have to be the unit. We've got Kenny Clark, a stud, who doesn't get talked about. He's never talked about a blue chip or red chip ever. He doesn't get mentioned. Rashawn Gary barely gets a red chip mention. They don't even want him on the blue chips. I think that Preston Smith is a solid dude that's been around the league, knows what he's doing. We got a first-round pick in LVN, and then three other dudes that are making moves. So I think I'd have to go with the D-line, which is crazy because I like the offense, right? But we just don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty solid when you think about it. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kenny Clark.
Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks.
Yeah, that's
it's not going to be, it's not going to be the big media names, you know what I mean? But like our solid line looking, deep looking in, I think it's got to be that.
It's pretty cool. We rattle off 4 position groups, and it's hard to look at any of them and go, no, I disagree with that.
Yeah. So, see how we conveniently avoided offensive line right now? And
yes, we did, sir.
Yeah.
And watch them come out and be the best. That would be absolutely awesome.
Yeah. Avoided offensive line, avoided linebackers.
Definitely. Cheesehead Murph also said, as pass catchers, why do a lot of them body catch if they use the jug machine to practice, which requires them to use their hands? I am not the person. I'm not the person to ask this to, Murph, because I don't have a problem with the body catch. Like, I grew up watching Jerry Rice, and that dude body caught more than anybody. How many times he came across the middle, jumped up, and caught it, against his body, or going deep against his body, right, rather than snatching it out of the air. But I don't know, man. I think it's more about the specific situation. If you're in the open field and catching the ball, you maybe snatch it with your hands. If you're running a deep curl, maybe they're taught in that specific situation. Murph, the defender bearing down on them from the back, catch it away from your body, then bring it in rather than waiting for it because you can get it just a split second earlier. Maybe it's more situational. Maybe key in on that this year and say, okay, when you see a body catch, make a note. Okay, there's a body catch. I think Jacob's doing body catching right now over at Brookview Meadows, but that's a story for a different day. When they do a body catch, think of where the defender is, what kind of defense they're in, what's the situation. Does that make sense, Emilio?
Yeah. No, I could see that because you're running a deep fade. It's coming, over the top, sort of a lob pass type, and drops in there. You're gonna close it in against your body, no problem. I think the issue on body catches is when it's a dart, when it's like a quick slant, and he is rifling that thing in there. And you're catching it into your chest. That thing is, it hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like if that thing drills you in the chest. If the pads weren't there, that thing's gonna hurt, right? So I think that's where it kind of catches up to you, where you're catching those quick slant rockets. But
absolutely. All right, Murph, thank you so much for the question. Everybody else in the Patreon group, really appreciate y'all. That was a lot of fun. I know we've got members in here now. With the channel being remonetized, we've also got our Patreon group that we just mentioned. If you guys want to join it, you can scan the QR code in the upper right, or you can just go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access, or just go to patreon.com and search Packer Fan Total Access. You'll see us there. And we've got some really cool chats set up, chalk talk, stuff like that. People are asking questions about specific routes, things like that. We're talking route combinations, everything that has to do with the X's and O's of football. And the cool thing about that chat, if there's an answer I don't have, we're going to find it, and everything will be posted in there. When we do Chalk Talks this year, my goal is to put all of that material that I use in my notes in that segment as well. So it's kind of what Patreon's becoming is kind of a companion app for the show, which is really, really cool. Mm-hmm. But again, if you're more comfortable supporting the show as a YouTube member of a Super Chats, that's awesome too. But I appreciate everybody in the Patreon group. So kicker talk, obviously it's dominated the offseason here. We're going to hit it really, really quick, Emilio. I put a poll question up earlier today, and let me refresh it real quick and see what the numbers are up to. So we had 615 votes, pretty good sample size. Poll question for the show: how do you feel about the Packers choosing Braden Narvison as their kicker over Anders Carlson and Greg Joseph? 3 choices, and they were specifically chosen for this reason. I wanted people to have to make a decision rather than go, we'll see.
Yeah.
And people in the chat, they crack me up in the comments like, I don't know, we'll have to see. Okay, well, thanks for playing along. I appreciate it. That really gave me It's how do you think the Packers will do this year? We'll just see. All right, thanks for tuning in. We'll see y'all tomorrow.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So I put great move, no real improvement, or a bad move. Great move, leading the way,
65%.
65. Is 2% more than 65%, 67. 28.6% said no real improvement, which, by the way, I can understand that. I can see how people would look at it that way. It's not like Narvis and
push. It's a push.
Yeah, it's not like he absolutely crushed it in college, right? Very similar in statistics, if I remember correctly, at the college game. And then bad move got 4.4%. So obviously Packers fans here, Emilio, they seem pretty optimistic about the kicker change, man.
Mm-hmm. I think we kind of have to be, right? Where at this point that's our decision. We got to move forward with it. But I think it could definitely be a push. If it works out, we'll figure out his contract later on, this, and that. But all they got to do, like Matt said, come in, kick the ball. I'm not worried about it. Just come in and kick it, put it through the uprights. So I think that's where they want it to be, right? You want it to be almost automatic. We're not worrying about it sort of thing. It's finding that person that's going to fill that role for the team. And I think that's why Goody made the jump is he thinks, the window's open. We are close. We need to make a decision quickly on it, on what's going to benefit the team the most.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving along. Jeff Hafley had his presser today, and let me tell you, it was a doozy. I really feel like Jeff Hafley, he answers questions honestly, and I really appreciate that. There you go. Smitty said it. Hafley's interview was absolute fire. You're on it tonight, Emilio. Appreciate you.
Respect Oranges. Hafley has great coaching energy. You're about to hear it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got 3 answers to 3 different questions, all right, that we're going to play here. I apologize if the volume's down. You can see I've got it cranked to the gills here. Hopefully you can hear the answer. If not, turn the volume up as much as you can. But I tweeted out, Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley was asked how you prepare to face an offense in Philly who has a new offensive coordinator, all right, because obviously they changed defensive coordinators. I think they changed offensive coordinators as well. Here was Coach Hafley's answer.
Figuring out your guys on defense, but what's the challenge trying to figure out what they want to do?
Oh, anytime you go into a season and there's a change at coordinator, you find yourself watching a lot of different film, right? You're watching Eagles personnel, you're watching the Chargers, you're watching things that he might have done in the past and other places that he's been, but then you got to look at the staff and you see a variety of different coaches that have been there for a long time, some involved with the run game, some in the pass game. So you have a lot to look at. You don't want to find yourself week one looking at too much and you're starting to see ghosts and things that, aren't really what they're going to do because it's week one and who knows how much they've changed, how much they're going to rely on what they've done in the past, how much he's going to change with the players that he has, right? Because a lot of guys have to adapt to the players that they have on the current roster. So ultimately, week one, you got to do what you do best. You got to play sound with good fundamentals, good technique. You got to play hard. You got to tackle. You got to get off blocks. You got to make plays on the football. But it's always a challenge early in the season because you don't have a lot of data. That needs to build up as you get going. So for now, there's a lot of guys watching a lot of different things.
I love it, man. And I love when they take you inside the whole game planning side of things with coaching in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And this is the stuff that I geek out over. Like what he's talking about is typically when you're playing a team and it's a returning coaching staff, you've got tape. You can go look at what they did well, right? And he talked about you can see their personnel. Obviously, you know what their personnel is going to be. You could study those players. You could go back to the New York Giants and study Saquon Barkley, but you don't know how the Philadelphia Eagles are going to use Saquon Barkley now that he's in Philly. Right. The other thing he said, you don't want to see any ghosts. What he means by that, that's a football term, and I absolutely love it. Mike Holmgren, first time I ever heard it, Mike Holmgren said it to Brett Favre, don't see any ghosts out there. Here's what he's talking about. When you spend all week game planning for a team, right? Mm-hmm. Let's focus on offense from Brett and Mike Holmgren's perspective for a second. You say, okay, here's how we're going to attack their defense. This is what they're doing. The last 4 game saturation that we've watched the tape, our last 2 head-to-heads, this is what they're doing. Here's how we're going to attack them. And all week long, you prepare for that. You prepare for that. You prepare for that. And then it comes game day, and they show you a different look, not necessarily a different defense, but a different pre-snap look. And you deviate from the game plan. Like, for instance, they may be showing a too-high shell and play a lot of cover 2 drop zone, right? Which means you can attack the bunkers and you can attack the base. You can hit the whole shot or you can hit the seam, okay? So if that's the game plan and then you come out on game day and the tape isn't matching with what they're showing you. They're showing you a single high look.
Right.
It's easy to go, okay, well, all right, they're probably in cover 3 or cover 1 man. So now you're immediately changing the play at the line of scrimmage. You snap the ball, they post-snap shift back into their cover 2 zone, and you just played right into their hands. You've seen a ghost. You've seen something that wasn't there, right?
You took away all the bunker shots. You took away everything just to be cover 3 or cover 1, and you blew it. You put crossers everywhere, and everyone's just sitting in their zones, and it's over. Then like you said, seeing ghosts.
Yep. And when you're facing a team like Philly, now let's flip it back around to the defensive side of the ball. You don't know what their offensive coordinator is going to do.
Right. Kellen Moore, right?
Right. Kellen Moore, correct.
Yep, new there, brand new.
And you can go back and watch him play in Dallas. But the reality is, and I'm not saying one's better than the other, although I will say it, I think Dak is better than Jalen Hurts. That's just me. I think Dak was arguably the best quarterback in football last year for most of, if not all of the season, until he hit the buzzsaw that was Joe Barry. I'll just leave it at that. Well, anyway, never going to hear buzzsaw and Joe Barry in the same sentence ever
again.
But so he's going to come in and prep for Kellen Moore. Okay, would you go back and watch the Dallas tape? You can't do that. Well, actually, he wasn't even with Dallas last year. It was the year before. Last year, he was with the Chargers.
Right?
Yeah. So do you go back and watch the Chargers tape with Kellen Moore?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or do you key in on Philly, what they did last year? Oh, well, they got a new running back.
Yep.
Okay, do you watch
the coaches that are still there pulling different things from there, still offensive game, offensive pass game coordinators, things like that. How are you going to connect all of the dots?
Absolutely. So what Hafley's saying is you just got to go out there and play fundamental football. Do what you do, right? Let's go out there and just do what we do as a defense. And as time goes on, he actually said that you start to compile that information. Now you've got data. What your team's doing well. Because you scout other teams, you also do what they call self-scouting. All right, what are we doing well? Let's lean into that a bit. Does it match up with the game plan we need to create this week? So
need to get to the first quarter of the season for that. Let's get through our first 4 games, and we have a little bit of data on everybody.
Bingo, exactly. And for those of you listening on the pod, we will see you guys on the other side for hour 2. Appreciate y'all. All right, got that. All right. And Emilio, you go when you got to go, big dog. You just hop off anytime. Gotcha. So another comment that Jeff Hafley made here. Let's pull it up. So they asked Jeff Hafley, would you prefer to call the plays on the field or in the box? You guys know my perspective or my opinion has always been I want to call it from the box. I want to see all the pieces of the puzzle. And you got to be down there with your players and you got to be in the mix and feedback. BS. Back to what we said about Mike Holmgren. You spend all week putting a game plan together, right? And then all of a sudden you get caught up in the emotion of the game on the sideline, and now you start to deviate away from what you and your whole staff spent countless hours determining was the proper game plan. That's how you get yourself in trouble. So when you're in the box, you're up away from that, right? Let's see what Jeff Hafley's answer was. Would he rather call the plays in the box or on the field?
What's your preference for calling plays from down on the field or up in the box?
I like to be up in the box right now. That's where I was in the preseason games. I've been on the field the last couple of years. Obviously, they didn't let me up there, but it's calm and quiet. I can kind of let everything out. You take the emotions out of it a little bit, which sometimes good and bad. It's nice to be around the players when you get excited and the guys get excited and to get them going and to calm them down and to talk to them. So I do think there's pluses and minuses to that. So there's part of me that likes to be involved with that aspect of it and be around the guys. But I think from calling it, setting stuff up, having your notes, setting the next series up, looking at the iPad, kind of having time to study while the offense is on the field and really get thoughts for the next possession, kind of self-scout yourself a little bit too and see what you've done, what has been good against you, what has worked for us. I just think you can get more accomplished from that standpoint. But I understand why people want to be down on the field too. There's moments that I want to be down. But I'll be upstairs. I think it's best for our team right now.
There you go. So, Emilio, this dude, he answers every question with 3 or 4 answers. It's like, here's the answer. Here's why I answered it that way.
Yep.
And here's another little nugget to go with why I answered it that way.
And that's how he's been and that's how he's been teaching the whole defense this whole offseason.
Yep.
Like absolutely, we are blessed to have him here. I like what Tool for this said. He said Hafley seems like a sideline energy guy, so it speaks volumes that he prefers his lab. Yes. He knows what he needs. And I mean, think about it. You're standing on the sideline. You're not going to be able to have an iPad, a pen. your stack of papers to the right, your stack of papers to the left, the other TV you got right in front of you because you're watching the last series of the Eagles. You know what I mean? Like you literally could have we could have your setup, right? With let's get 12 different screens around us and make sure that we can see every bit of this field. But just seeing it from the aerial, you can plan everything out. Like you said, you can see the whole play develop. You got all 22 all game long. And the only thing you're missing out on is like Ron was talking here, you're not going to have the interaction with the players, but you got to have the assistants keep the guys fired up, and that's why we got camp, and that's why we have everyone else down there. I mean, you don't think he's going to be able to get somebody fired up during a game,
right? So Emilio was talking about my setup. Here's the setup. We got a way too expensive curved monitor that I'm staring at right now, and then right here you've got, I think it's a 48-inch flat screen TV. So typically, when I'm doing stuff, I've got a 75-inch on the wall over here. Right? It's got turned on maybe 10 times since I've had it, right? Because I'm right here on this little TV watching the Packers game. So I've got everything I need with the monitor. I can tweet during the game. I can, replay everything right here on the monitor. But then when the Packers aren't playing, that's when you kick over there onto the couch, take a little nappy nap.
Pick the feet up.
Fall asleep watching how bad the Bears offense runs. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. So it is a pretty cool setup, though. And it was all made possible by Mandy. That's for sure. She gave me permission. That's exactly. So all right. Another comment from Jeff Hafley. Last one we got. This is the one that got everybody fired up. They were kind of asking him, about leading up to his first game as defensive coordinator. And again, when you're talking to the media, you're talking to your team. Listen to this response as Jeff Hafley talks about letting it rip.
When your first game calling plays in the NFL, is that exciting, nervous? What are your emotions going into it?
I'm excited. You put in a lot of work, a lot of time, and it's not just me. It's really the whole staff, right? Everything that we've been working forward from the moment we got hired and we sat down, we spent a long off season together. We went through OTAs, we got through training camp, we pieced it together, what we wanted, what we liked, what we
focus on his eyes. Look how intense he is right now. He's talking about the work right now.
Didn't like a lot of hours of different thoughts and ideas and going through training camp and seeing what we liked against Matt. And then obviously in the limited time we had in the preseason games and now we're in the process of piecing it all together and having a game plan. And I mean, for me, it's like this. It's just like I talk to the players, and I mean this. We're going to work really hard up until the time we kick off, and my sheet's going to be in front of me, and I'm going to let it rip. And we're going to call it. We're going to play fast, and we're going to be physical, and I'm not going to hesitate on the call. We're going to get it in quickly to the quay so they can look out and see what the offense is coming out in, and we can go line up and play. Once that starts, maybe I'll be a little anxious before kickoff, but we're going to work to the point where we're prepared. I trust the players. I trust the staff, and I just got to go call it, and they got to go play and execute. And I cannot wait for that to happen.
I love it, dude. I love it. You know what I thought of immediately when I heard him say that? The old Bill Parcells. Go to YouTube tonight, guys, and type in Bill Parcells lift all that weight. Okay? He's on the side. I think it's in the Super Bowl. And his guys are all tired and everything. He said, guys, this is what we did this for. This is why we worked. This is why we lifted all those weights. This is why you done all that SHIT is what he said, right? Right now.
You got up at 6 a.m, and that's why you got up at 4 to go run, then lift at 6. I mean,
yeah. I love it, dude. That's the same vibe I got from him right there. He's like, we put in the work. We put in the time in training camp. They went through all the scouting to get the right players in here that they feel like this is the best squad. We can make this happen. We went through all of the training, all of the forget training camp, forget the practice for a second. The countless hours the coaching staff spends in the facility when the players are at home hanging out, doing whatever they do in their free time. They're in there grinding. And then all of a sudden you get to the point where it's, all right, it's time to go. Yeah, there's going to be some nerves. There's going to be some anxiety. I'm going to have my sheet in front of me. We're going to call it aggressive. We're going to call it fast. We're going to get the play into our players quick enough that they can get a good look at the offense. They're not going, what's the call? I don't know what I'm doing. Get lined up quick. Let's go and let the damn thing rip.
Right. You can't think about it, right? You think about it too much, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to be tripping over your feet. I mean, you got to look at it as football comes down to two things: time and score. I mean, that is literally all he has to worry about. How much time's left on the clock? What's the score right now? What where are we moving forward with our defense? Let's get it moving. Let's get it done. And how excited he is and how excited we already are gets me even, absolutely more excited. If he's talking like this just to the reporters, like you said, look at his eyes. He looks at the reporter, then like I do, look off to the side, looking at, some shoe in the corner, and you're like visualizing everything that's happened the past 3 weeks, just trying to rattle it all off. We're lucky, man, the way he teaches, the way he carries himself. Yeah. We're ready to go.
I'm excited to have it. To me, he seems like the perfect partner for Matt LaFleur on offense. You got him on defense. I think it's going to be great. Emilio, I appreciate your time, man. You go spend time with the lady. Thank you so much, buddy.
Appreciate you, bud.
If you hear from Jacob, let me know. All right, he's out there in the wilderness right now. So, all right, guys, we'll continue on here. Obviously, we heard from Jeff Hafley. Got a couple other things I wanted to hit on. Ryan Schlitt, Pack Daddy himself, actually tweeted this out. Really cool tweet. And I'll try to monitor the chat as much as I can, guys. I know you guys get tired of hearing me say it, but when we're in here flying solo, other than when the super chats flying, it's hard for me to kind of pick through and read them. The super chats are highlighted, so it's a little bit easier to pick those out. But Pack Daddy tweeted this out. People massively underestimate Jacobs and overestimate Saquon Barkley. Barkley never met his potential and is constantly hurt. Jacobs has been one of the best backs in the league since he got in. And he did a comp of the stats here. 2019, Josh Jacobs, 1,150 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns. I believe this is the way these stats are listed here. 87 PFF grade. Saquon, 1,003 yards, 6 touchdowns, only a 72 PFF grade. Now, he had an ankle sprain and missed 3 weeks that year as well. Jump forward to 20. So I think we would all agree 2019, you tip your cap, it goes to Josh Jacobs. 2020, Josh Jacobs, 1,065 yards, 12 touchdowns, 76.3 PFF grade. Saquon Barkley, torn ACL, missed all but 2 games of the season. 2020 goes to Josh Jacobs. 2021, Josh Jacobs, 872 yards rushing, 9 touchdowns, 77.7 PFF grade. Saquon Barkley, 593 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 59 PFF grade. Ankle sprain, missed 5 weeks. 2021 goes to Josh Jacobs. 2022, Josh Jacobs, 1,653 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, 91.6 PFF grade, best in the league, as Pack Daddy pointed out here. Saquon Barkley, great year, 1,312 yards, 10 touchdowns, 77 PFF grade. With Saquon's best season to date, Josh Jacobs still had a better season that year, by far. He outrushed him by over 300 yards, had 2 more touchdowns, and had damn near 20 more points in PFF grade over him. So 2022 goes to Josh Jacobs. 2023, Josh Jacobs' down year. Now, you guys know the Raiders' offense was kind of in shambles, right? Josh Jacobs, 805 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns. Saquon Barkley, 962 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs' PFF grade 65, Saquon 70.2. He had an ankle sprain and missed 4 weeks. So I would give 2023 to Saquon Barkley. So out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that we just talked about, 4 of the 5 years, Josh Jacobs, hands down, was the better back than Saquon Barkley. So when Pack Daddy tweets this out, it says people massively underestimate Jacobs and overestimate Barkley. Barkley never met his potential, is constantly hurt. Jacobs has been one of the best backs in the league since he got in. When you read that initially, you go, it seems like kind of a hot take. I don't know. He broke it down perfectly. I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm on board with Ryan on this, man. I really think that Josh Jacobs is the better back, hands down, than Saquon, man. Pretty cool. So let's see. We got a super chat here from Ron Samuel. Clayton starts sounding like Hafley when he talks about him. I'll tell you, buddy, that guy has forgot more about football than I will ever know. I appreciate that. I guess that's a compliment. Maybe it ain't. Maybe you make fun of it. But when you hear people talk passionately about the game of football, it's hard not to get excited about it. And that's the true sign of a leader, right? When someone, I heard it said one time that the definition of a leader, right? Not the definition of a leader, but the sign of a leader is when you look back and you've got a whole bunch of people following you, right? And that kind of starts with picking people up and bringing them up to your level of enthusiasm. We live in a day, like in 2024, society teaches us, that's so brat. Just chill. It's not a big deal. Why are you getting so upset? It's not that big of a deal. It's the internet, guy. Have fun. It's society teaches you don't get excited. It's not cool to get excited. That's the biggest crock of crap anyone could ever live by in their life. Nothing important truly happens until people get fired up about what they're doing. And what Jeff Hafley is a master at, and we've seen it just for a few short months since he came on staff, he's really good at showing how passionate he is at his craft. Therefore, when you hear him talk about it and you start to dive into what he's talking about and try to learn just a smidget of what he knows, you understand why he's excited about it. It's just contagious, I think it was Vince Lombardi that said winning is contagious, but so is losing. It's so true, man. It's so true. Show me the coach. Like Belichick, what you see in the media with Bill Belichick over the years, he looked boring, right? It's like, who the hell could play for him? You talk to all of his players most of his players behind the scenes, and they're like, this dude has got one of the funniest personalities, one of the best sense of humor, and he is so well prepared, and he's all about the details, and there's nothing that gets by him. And you'll have guys that like Randy Moss and of course Tom Brady and your Richard Seymours and all these great players, Teddy Bruschi. It's like when you see how much a guy pours his life into his craft and trying to understand every little nuance to the game, it's hard for these players to not go, that's pretty damn cool, man. Give me a piece of that. Let's try that. You know what I'm saying? So Jeff Hafley, man, he's I want him to succeed so bad. Because what sucks, if I can be negative for a second, he could come out and lay an egg. And I'm going to be the first to say, if he's a bad defensive coordinator, I don't care how excited he is. Winning is the most important thing. And I know everybody in the chat and every Packer fan hearing my voice completely agrees with that. But, man, if he makes this work and we take that next step, bro, it's going to be so fun rooting for that guy. And you're going to learn a lot about him. There's going to be hiccups that come along. There's going to be times that the coaching staff's going to struggle and this team's going to struggle. It happens for every team in the history of the game. It's true leaders, and that grit shows up when your back's against the wall. We seen it last year where they have a 4-game losing streak, and Jordan Love just came out and said, nah, we ain't going down like this. That's why it's so easy to get behind someone like Jordan Love. It's so easy to get behind someone like Matt LaFleur. I know there was a lot of talk yesterday, and thank you for the super chat, Ron. Appreciate you, buddy. There was a lot of talk yesterday about Matt LaFleur throwing Rich Bisaccia under the bus. He kind of took a shot at Rich. You need to ask Rich that question. Ask Rich about that. And listen, I'm not going to mention any names, but there were several podcasters that were like, man, there's a problem with this and that. And then they get a chance to ask Rich Bisaccia questions, and not one of them had the balls to ask him about that specific situation. Spent their whole programs talking about it. But when they got face-to-face with Rich Bisaccia in the media room, they weren't going to ask him, hey, did you hear Matt throw you under the bus? I'm glad they did. I'm glad he didn't ask him, but it did kind of say like, all right, guys, come on. Y'all were painting this like there is a real problem at 1265 Lombardi. And Rich Bisaccia basically, to me, he's echoed everything that Matt LaFleur said, right? I love that it gets a little fiery too. Like Rich Bisaccia wants the best special teams in the entire league. Just like Matt LaFleur wants to have the best overall team, just like Jeff Hafley wants to have the best defense. Like everybody's working together. Steno wants to have the top offense. Iron truly does sharpen iron. And I'm telling you, Jeff Hafley is just unbelievable. I really see the resemblance of Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley and kind of how they have similar coaching styles. Hafley has still got that honeymoon phase going right now, right? And what I mean by that is he's still kind of, man, I'm excited to be in Green Bay. This is a special place. Matt had that when he came in. Now Matt's a grizzled vet, and he's like, I ain't putting up with no BS anymore, right? It's all about winning. We got to get to the next. Somebody asked him how it's the difference between winning and losing is razor thin, and he cut him off mid question. Was like, believe me, I know all about it. Like, what do you know who you're talking to right now? So the fact that Matt LaFleur has Josh Jacobs to to bring it kind of back full circle to what Pac Daddy tweeted here, Josh Jacobs could be a huge piece here. Now, many people like to have the conversation, is Josh Jacobs better than Aaron Jones and vice versa? First of all, they're two different type of backs. You know, Aaron Jones is kind of that slasher. Aaron Jones is that guy that's going to make chicken salad out of chicken crab. Like when the ball snapped, he tries to read it as quick as he can. If that's not there, I'm taking that right now. I'm taking that spot. I'm making my cut. I'm getting upfield. I'm cutting back across the grain. He's just kind of this wild card. Josh Jacobs is a little more patient, and I feel comfortable saying that he runs with a little more power than Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones ran with power for his size. There's no two ways about it. But Josh Jacobs is going to be more of let the hole develop. All right, let's hit it and hit it with power. He's got home run speed too. But also when you talk about the passing game, when I find myself being a little negative, like, man, I think Aaron Jones is better than Josh Jacobs. Look at what happened in the passing game last year. Aaron Jones wasn't that effective in the passing game. If Josh Jacobs raises that level of play from the running back position in the passing game specifically from last year, this offense may go to an even higher point this year. And that's just absolutely wild to think about. It really is. We were talking let's do this real quick since we got a little extra time here. We were talking about defenses, right? And how we were talking about Jeff Hafley coming in as defensive coordinator. I thought it would be cool to go back in time and look at the past defenses for Green Bay. And you can find all this information on Team Rankings. I think it's teamrankings.com. And they've got a really cool setup here where you can sort by everything as you see here, passing offense, scoring defense, everything. You guys know that the stat that I think is most important when it comes to gauging a defense is opponents' points per play, right? And there's some people that love DVOA. That's cool. I'm not a big fan of DVOA. I'm not. When people explain it to me, I go, man, that seems like that's a little that you can only play the opponent in front of you, right? When someone tells me that a DVOA score is more important than how many points you're giving up per game, you've lost me. You've lost me. Because I always flip it back around and say, okay, if DVOA is so important, you have to choose one or the other. Which would you rather have? To only give up 10 points this week and have a lower DVOA? Or would you rather give up 15 points and have the best DVOA in the league? There's not been one person that said, give me the better DVOA. Not one single person, right? So opponent points per player, just that. It's how many points did they average per offensive play ran. I think that's really important. You can also do yards per play. But I thought we'd go back in time here. You guys remember the great Super Bowl year of 2010, right? Where we were talking, we opened up the show with Clay Matthews and Dom Capers is presenting him. Obviously, Dom Capers, I remember when he was hired. I might get emotional here, man. It's just hit me. I didn't even think about this pre-show. This is wild. When Dom Capers was hired, the first person I called was my brother, my big brother. And I was like, man, I said, Alan, guess what, man? They hired Dom Capers. And he said, who did? I said, Green Bay. He said, I didn't even know he was still in the league. I went, yeah. See, my brother got me into watching pro football when I was a kid. And he was a big Steelers fan. He grew up in the 70s. So I became a Steelers fan just by default, right? You always root for your big brother's team, right? And along the way, he taught me about the Blitzburg defense. That's why when people, like somebody messaged me the other day and was like, I didn't know you knew that much about Steelers football from the 90s. I'm like, yeah, because my brother, he loved everything about it. That's why I can rattle them off. I can talk about the guys that played on it. I can talk about your Levon Kirklands, your Greg Lloyds, your Kevin Greens, all the way down the line, Darren Perry, who ended up being a defensive backs coach for Dom Capers. When he was hired, I told Alan, hey, man, we hired Dom Capers. And I was like, man, they're bringing Blitzburg to Green Bay. And Kevin Green came on the staff, and I love the video. And now Kevin Green obviously went on to be with the Lord. But he said he got that call. Remember, it was NFL Films in a special. He said, I got a call from Dom Capers, Coach Dom. And hey, Coach Dom, he said, are you ready? Are you ready to coach? And he said, Coach, I'm ready. And they brung him in to coach up Clay Matthews. I guarantee if Kevin Green was still alive, he would be the one presenting Clay Matthews because they just formed this bond. You guys have seen the Spillet Pickett play, right? It was just so cool to see them usher in Blitzburg in the 34 zone blitz defense into Green Bay And me and my brother kind of have that moment, you know. It kind of came full circle. And when they played Pittsburgh that year in 2010 in the Super Bowl, it might have been technically 2011, I believe it was. I may be getting the years mixed up here a little bit. But my brother called me that morning. He said, "Hey, man, I just want you to know I'm rooting for Green Bay today, man. I hope they get them." Because they had already, won, I think, a couple at that point, which is really cool. Pittsburgh had. So it was just a cool moment. But anyway, let's go down memory lane here real quick. Dom Capers in Green Bay in 2010. Look at his points per play. He led the league at .262. Look behind him. Pittsburgh, who was still running the zone blitz defense, the 34 zone blitz defense, which at the time was, God, his name escapes me. I can't believe this. Dick LeBeau. I think it's Dick LeBeau was his name, if I remember correctly. So you have Baltimore. Guess what they ran? They ran a multiple defense, but it was a 34 blitz-heavy defense, right? Chicago, I think, was in the Tampa 2 at the time, right? I can't believe I remember some of these. I can't remember what Tennessee runs. There you go. And then, of course, Bill Belichick always run his hybrid defense, which was built like a 34, but he wanted his outside linebackers to be able to play coverage so he could shift to a 4-3 at any moment to give himself a current advantage. But Green Bay led the way in 2010 at .262. So let's go to 2011 now. 2011, San Francisco at .246. Green Bay dropped all the way down to 18th. And people go, the roster didn't change that much. Why did they sink so bad? I guarantee you it's because they tried to do the same thing that year they did the year before. And it's not necessarily a mistake, because if something works, you stick with it until it's proven that it doesn't work, right? And the league is so cyclical, and it's such a copycat league, and you've got all this game tape that you can really attack defenses and be able to kind of break them down to a T. That's what happens in the league. That's why, like Ryan points out on his podcast, I've heard him do it several times, where it's like your defense will play really well one year, and then the next year it'll fall off, and then it'll come back. That's why it's so rare that you have teams like Kansas City here lately with Spags that's really just been very consistent, because teams catch on and you've got to be able to adjust, right? And that was Joe Barry's big knock, is he just refused to adjust. Now, was it him? Was it Matt? I don't know. They said that they adjusted toward the second half of the season, and it was Matt. But nonetheless, in 2011, Green Bay finished 18th in points per play. And do you think it's any coincidence that in 2010 they had, for the people that say opponent points per play don't matter, isn't it wild that the team that led in points per play on defense were the ones that won the Super Bowl? Funny how that works. And, oh, by the way, the team that they played in the Super Bowl was number 2. You see what I'm saying? So, anyway, let's move on to 2012. I just want to rattle these off real quick. In 2012, look what you got, guys. The defense that we're getting ready to install, it's not Pete Carroll's cover 3 buzz to a T. It's not the Legion of Boom defense, but that's the tree that it comes from. It's from that family of that defense, right? That's where Robert Saleh came from, goes to San Fran. Jeff Hafley coached with him in San Fran. Half ends up going on to Ohio State, and then, of course, Boston College. You've got Saleh, who goes to the New York Jets. Then you've got DeMeco Ryans that kind of comes up through the ranks. He takes over that same style of defense in San Francisco. Now he's in Houston. So you're starting to see Seattle burst onto the scene now with the Legion of Boom. .267. You had Chicago that had a phenomenal year that year, running their normal Tampa 2. I think that was still under Lovey, if I remember correctly. You see San Francisco starting to really take off again. Then Miami, then Baltimore. Let's go to 2013. I love to see the evolution of how these defenses grew. 2013, the Legion of Boom is still on top with .236. It got even better. San Francisco's 3rd, Carolina jumps to 2nd, Cincy's 4th. If I remember correctly, right around that time in Cincy, that would have been the old Minnesota Vikings coach Zimmer, who's now in Dallas, I believe, if I remember correctly. So you've seen them kind of emerge. And, of course, you have Miami there 5th. Bill Belichick just always right around the top 5, just steady Eddie. All right, moving on to 2014. Kansas City bursts onto the scene, .274. Seattle's still there at .27. Buffalo, .28. Houston, .28. And then Detroit, .293. So Detroit starts to climb the ranks a bit, right? Green Bay drops all the way down to 12th, or they're rising back up to 12th, I guess you could say, in 2014. So, obviously shifting, moving things around there. 2015. let's see where Green Bay – well, first of all, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Denver were the first three. I think in 2015, that might have been around the time that Fangio came onto the scene. I'm not sure. I don't know that. I think it might be a little early before Fangio got to Denver. But nonetheless, Minnesota 4th, Seattle 5th, still hanging around the top 10. There's New England again, number 6. Green Bay jumped one spot to 11th. Okay, so they're starting to get closer to the top 10 again. 2016, New England, number 1, just absolutely dominated, .264. Denver 2nd, New York Giants 3rd. That was that great pass rush. Obviously, you've seen there in the mid-2010s, I guess you could say. Kansas City 4th, Seattle 5th in opponent points per play. All right. Green Bay ended up dropping down all the way to 27th. Again, that was in 2016. So 2017, the Packers now are sitting in, we'll try to key in on Green Bay here, the 27th spot again in 2017. The LA Chargers burst onto the scene as the top defense. Then Jacksonville, Minnesota, Baltimore, and Philly, New England once again in 6th place. They love that number 6 spot. 2018, opponent points per play. Chicago, number 1. Baltimore 2, Tennessee 3, Houston 4, Jacksonville 5. And then Green Bay climbed up to 22nd. Okay, so that's 2018. I think, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was Mike Pettin. Mike Pettin was here for a couple of years, if I remember correctly, at least 2 years. 2019 was definitely Mike Pettin. So we get to 2019. Number 1 was New England, Buffalo, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Minnesota. Green Bay jumps up to 12th, right, in 2019. So that would have been Matt LaFleur's first year as coach, if I remember correctly. Yep. And remember, they decided to keep Mike Pettin on, and that's the famous quote that Rodgers said, we got us a defense, right? They jumped all the way to 12th that year. 2020. In 2020, it was Baltimore, the Rams, and this is where the Fangio system really takes over, right? They're running the Fangio scheme in LA, and people absolutely love it. Baltimore keeps doing what they're doing. Washington, then you got Tampa, then you got Miami, okay? Green Bay dropped down to 16th. And then, of course, I believe that's the year that they let Pettin go, if I remember correctly. He had 1 year with Matt LaFleur. So they let him go. So this is Joe Barry's first year, I'm assuming. I think that's right. Finished 16th in points per play. All right. 2021. Actually, 2021 might have been Joe Barry. I may be getting those mixed up. Number 1, Buffalo, Seattle, Denver. That's Vic Fangio. Okay. Number 4, New Orleans. Number 5, New England. You see New England just continuing to stay. It's amazing that they've stayed steady in defense for 2 freaking decades. It's just wild. Green Bay sitting around the 15th spot. All right. And again, that was in 2021. Not horrible, not in the bottom half of the league, right? Definitely not a championship defense, though. 2022, you got San Francisco. Now think about that. San Francisco, I think that was DeMeco Ryans, if I remember correctly, 2022. Yeah, last year was his first year in Houston. So you've still got that kind of Robert Saleh style defense, which comes from that old school Pete Carroll cover 3 buzz look, right? So you've got San Francisco. They ran that defense, the defense that were essentially the skeleton of what we're going to be running this year. We'll see how close Hafley plays to the solid defense or if he kind of goes with his own mold. But San Francisco was 1. The Jets were 2. Dallas was 3. Buffalo 4. Baltimore 5. New England 7th. And, of course, Green Bay in 2022 in points per play drops down to 25th, right? Now, 2023, you've got Green Bay jumps all the way to 12th. Number 1 was Baltimore, Kansas City, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Las Vegas, then New Orleans. The Jets dropped down to 9th. I know some people like to say, okay, well, their offense is absolute cheeks. That's why they struggled so much. I guess there's a valid argument to be made there to a certain extent. But Green Bay jumps to 12th. This is when I was going, guys, this ain't that bad. Like, we finished 12th in points per game. Now, the problem was people were talking about the long sustained drives, right? And to me, the real issue was the lack of turnovers. So I go through all of those just to kind of talk about the evolution of defense. Where was Green Bay year in and year out? What defense has been sustainable? right? And one of those defenses is the defense that we're in now with this Pete Carroll type defense, old school Legion of Boom style, right? And again, it's not just a cover 3 buzz, but it's coached up the same way. Those this right here that I pulled up about talking about the linebackers and their specific responsibilities and how they run the 4-3 over, the under, the bear, what the Mike's responsibility is with the Sam, the wheel. This is from 2022, that article was. So this is really recent, all right? Like the 4-3 over. The standard look with 3 linebackers behind a 4-man front that is shifted into the strong side gaps of the offensive line. Always think over is to the tight end side, under is away from the tight end side. So you're playing over the tight end, over the strong side, or under the strong side. And what it simply means is your defensive tackles will go, you'll typically in a 4-3 front have somewhere around a 1 tech and a 3 tech. The 1 tech being between the guard and the center, that's your nose, and then the 3 tech being in between the guard and the tackle. That's the most important position on the defensive line from the interior is that 3 tech. So when you're in an over, the 3 tech is on the strong side of the formation. When you're in an under, the 3 tech is on the weak side of the formation. Now, many times what will happen is when you're in an under, you'll bring a Sam or a strong side linebacker when you're in a base defense up to the line of scrimmage or close to the line of scrimmage to play the outside shoulder of the tight end. You know, when we talk about a true Y, they've got to be able to block. They've got to be able to run block a 9 tech, pass block a 7 tech. That's really how you can. George Kittle can run block a 9 tech, and he can pass block a 7 tech. That's what we're talking about. But you walk that Sam up on the line of scrimmage, and essentially what you've got, and many people don't like to talk about this, is you've got your 4-man front shifted to the weak side of the formation, and you've got your Sam on the line of scrimmage. That is really, 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 really close to a 34 jam. So when you're in an under with the Sam on the line of scrimmage, that's kind of what you're playing into. Okay, now there's weaknesses to everything. Now you can also, some people are going, but Clayton, we're usually in a nickel set, right? A nickel 4-2-5 or a nickel 2-4-5. Correct. When you play the under there, that's where the spur safety comes in. When you'll bring the strong safety up and play him in the box, almost like a Sam backer, not necessarily mugging the outside shoulder of a tight end, but you bring him up to where now it makes it look almost like a 4-4 defense, but you've got a safety kind of playing hybrid linebacker, okay? So when you play a 4-3 under or in a nickel 4-2-5, you play an under front, your safety can play what they call at the college level spur and act as that other linebacker. So all the run fits are still one gap responsibility. Then, of course, in the old Pete Carroll system, which is now evolved into Robert Saleh's defense and D'Amico Ryans, and everybody puts their own spin on it, you got the 4-3 bear. That's a run-heavy formation that sometimes calls up 2 linebackers onto the edge of the defensive front, bringing up the strong safety alongside the remaining linebackers. So you are just loaded at the line of scrimmage, ready to stop the run. You've got that in your back pocket if you play a team that's very, very, very run-heavy and like to go to 21 personnel. Now, the problem you run into when you go to a 4-3 bear and you start committing to the run and you play a team like San Francisco where they play a lot of 21 personnel, you show that bear, they're going to hammer that slot cross and those levels concepts right over your backer's shoulder. They're going to throw it right by your linebacker's ear off of play action. And when you got a quarterback like Brock Purdy, unfortunately, they can do that. So, again, that's just kind of a quick glance. What I wanted to accomplish there, and I hope it wasn't too confusing, was let's go back in history. Here's where all these defenses kind of ranked. All right. Here's more or less the evolution of defense, but more specifically of the Pete Carroll cover 3 buzz that has evolved into the Robert Saleh 4-3 defense of an over and under and a bear look for the majority of the time, although you're in a nickel a large majority of the time, right? The nickel 4-2-5. Now, you got to have the dogs to run it. That's something that we can talk X's and O's and get all excited about. Yeah, we're running that style of defense. You've got to have a Sauce Gardner. You've got to have a Quinnen Williams. You got to have a Quincy Williams. You got to have a C.J. Mosley. You got to have these guys that can be difference makers in your defense. So when you look at what Robert Saleh has done with the Jets defense, the organization can be a dumpster fire. We would all agree, right? I mean, it can turn into cue up the circus music in New York, right? In the Meadowlands, I should say, in Jersey. But that defense has been solid. So what you got to ask yourself is, who is our Sauce Gardner, right? I like to think Jair Alexander is on the level of Sauce Gardner. At least he has been. He's capable of it, right? Who's our C.J. Mosley? Can Quay Walker play at the level of C.J. Mosley at Mike and be that gap destroyer? I'm not going to lie to you guys. I respect y'all too much to just BS you. I don't think Quay Walker is on C.J. Mosley's level. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he steps into that. It's still early in his career. C.J. Mosley probably wasn't at C.J. Mosley's level 3 years into his career, right? 2 years into his 2 full years into his career. So who's going to be your Quincy Williams, that other linebacker, right? That will type. And he played a lot of Sam too, which they were in a lot of nickels. So it was typically C.J. Mosley and him on the field together. And they had a little bit of a hybrid pass rusher too. I can't remember his name right now. Came out in the draft a couple of years ago. They like to pop him in there from time to time when they wanted to bring 5 on the rush, which they'll tell you their goal is to rush with 4. You want to get hit home with pressure on 4, have 7 in coverage, and make the defense make a mistake. That's how you control the turnover battle. Who would be our Will? Who would be our Quincy Williams? Who's that guy? Hopefully it's Edgerrin Cooper. You kind of see the direction they're going in. And it's going to take a few weeks for Edgerrin Cooper to get up the snuff, you know. Can it be Isaiah McDuffie? Possibly. I think he's a pretty solid defensive player. I'm hoping Coach Campanelli can kind of get the best out of him, the most out of him that we've seen so far. The most important part, though, is on the defensive front. Who's your Quinnen Williams? Everybody's saying Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark's our Quinnen Williams. Kenny Clark is not Quinnen Williams. I hate to be the one to say it, man, but Quinnen Williams is an absolute monster. Now, we've not seen Kenny in a 4-3 defense. There's a chance that Kenny just magically turns into Quinnen Williams. If he does, you're going to see Green Bay up here to the top, to the front of this list, man. I'm just telling you, they're going to be what I want to see. You see Green Bay right here. If you can see my cursor, I'm sure you guys can. Green Bay finished 12th in points per play last year, right? I want to see them jump into the top 10 in points per play. If they jump into the top 10 in points per play, and let's say we get 4 to 6 more turnovers than we did last year. We dropped 7 interceptions as a defense last year. And I've been very vocal. That's not on the defensive coordinator, right? That's your players just not making plays. Quay had several drops, although he had an awesome interception in week 1. That's what I want to see more of. We've seen Ja drop interceptions. We've seen Savage drop plenty of interceptions. There was a lot of dropped interceptions last year. If we can get that turnover up another 4 to 6 in turnovers and just climb up just a touch and control this points per play and get inside the top 10, and if Jordan continues to protect the football like he did in the second half of the season last year, bro, the sky's the freaking limit. It's I'm excited. Like Hafley said, I'm excited about this year, man, no doubt about it. So with that being said, again, guys, I'm sorry to neglect the chat. It's tough to keep up with it when you're trying to not have dead air while you're reading chats and all that stuff. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun year. But thank y'all for being patient with me in here tonight. Jacob had stuff to do. Tim's out of town, and obviously Emilio had to get off here at the normal time. But we definitely wanted to try to put together a longer episode if possible. So yeah. With that being said, just want to give a quick shout out to United Bates. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. And I agree, Emilio is awesome. Had to take a phone call, and he just absolutely crushed it. Also, thank you to Ron Samble. Appreciate the super chat there, buddy. Thank you for the kind words. And I'm looking forward to this season, man, and us kind of learning as we go along together. If you guys and gals would do a quick favor for me, hit that like button. The channel is doing great. It's humbling how many people have interacted and kind of jumped on board with us, because in the name Packers Total Access or Packer Fan Total Access, that's exactly what we wanted it to be. Was a bunch of Packer fans coming together, keeping the chat positive, having a good time, learning ball together, and just creating an environment that other people want to be a part of. And y'all are the ones that have made that happen. The Patreon group has actually just been absolutely phenomenal. I know the YouTube member list is blowing up. It's going to be a great year. I'm really excited. I mean, tomorrow we're 1 week away from week 1 matchup, Packers-Eagles. We're going to be here for a pregame show. We're going to be here for the post-game show. We're going to be doing Chalk Talk the following week. We'll be going live every single day. I can't wait to get to November because that's when my workload slows down. My businesses really taper off, and we'll be doing multiple shows. There'll probably be days that I do 3 shows a day, to be honest with you. I'll wake up, grab a cup of coffee, come up here with bed head, and go, all right, what are we talking about today, guys? And then around noon, grab a little lunch, go, let's go talk some more ball. And then we'll do our normal PTA live at night. So it's going to be a fun year, man. It's going to be an absolutely fun year. So, again, if you guys would just hit that like button on the way out, appreciate y'all. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. No show tomorrow, okay? Got Friday Night Lights going to my nephew's ball game tomorrow. So we'll be out of the loop there. I'm going to do a show early Saturday and possibly midday Saturday, and then me and Mandy are going to grab dinner Saturday night. So we'll give you multiple shows Saturday, and then Sunday we'll be back for PTA Live at night, probably do a morning show too. So there'll be plenty of content rolling out. We got plenty to talk about. I've got a ton of stuff I wanted to hit on offensively through Bobby Peters' book to kind of break down what the Packers did really well last year, what they're trying to accomplish. We got a ton of stuff. So, again, everybody on the pod, thank you so much. We appreciate y'all's support. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world and go Pack Up.